My point is that you can serve your own interests and still be a good man.
Right.
That's the difference. I didn't appreciate the fact that Jack Layton, in order to serve his own interests, had to also somewhat serve the interests of Stephen Harper. Okay? Because every single time a vote disappears from the Liberals, who are the chief rivals of the Conservatives, it made the Conservatives a little stronger, right? So my point is that a Jack Layton can do something like this and be a good man at the same time. Had Jack Layton miraculously won the election and had majority power in this country, do you think he'd be really wielding his power with such disrespect towards democratic institutions in Canada?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think so.
I don't
see
think
that.
so. It's like, and again, I guess the complications that occur are, yes, okay, of course, the Conservatives are going to stand up and they're going to point their finger at a whole bunch of things that they would overextend the actuality. Like they would make something seem bigger than it was. But that's because also that, sadly, and I mean, I guess I shouldn't say sadly because it's the right way to do things. If the Liberals would do it this way too, they would allow a certain amount of debate. And when you allow a certain amount of debate, you allow your opponent to get loud and obnoxious and to attack you and to smear you. What they wouldn't be doing is they wouldn't be going, yeah, you know what, we're going to give this about 4 days and then it's done, constantly on everything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I mean, and no one notices, no Canadians, no voters notice because most people don't pay attention to the actual goings on in Parliament.
Exactly. That's part of the problem. I mean, how do you go get a hockey fan and say, you know what? You need to watch some CPAC. This. Yeah, you need to get involved in this. You know what I mean? And then the hockey fan's going to say, "Oh, all those politicians are all the same anyway." What about it? And and you know who wins then, right? Because I'll tell you what, your average hockey fan, the Joe public there who sits and watches Hockey Night in Canada and gets his fucking politics from Don Cherry, for Christ's sakes, you know what I mean? This guy, he needs to be voting NDP. I'll tell you straight up that the average hockey fan, okay, needs to vote NDP. Because if you can take the stereotypical hockey fan and put him in his appropriate level of the socioeconomic scale, that's your NDP constituent right there,
Mm-hmm. And I guess the saddest part about that is it's the hidden, it's like how do you put that, where there is a good chunk of people out there that aren't visible, that are like that love hockey because we're Canadian, we like to watch hockey, we enjoy it, that do care and do vote differently than, they're not just going to think Conservative, but it's that visible group that you're talking about where it's like either they don't vote at all, which is way worse than voting Conservative even, you know what I mean? Like, vote. Have a fucking say. It's the only say you get as far as the decision making that goes on in this country. Yeah. I mean,
if you're not going to get involved, get yourself, participate in the process by being involved with a political party or doing something like activism or whatever, like at least get yourself informed and fucking cast a vote in an intelligent way according to your own best interests. I'm not saying like vote according to my best interests. Vote according to your own best interests.
Absolutely.
And in a democracy, if people vote accurately according to their own best interests, the will of a democratic people will be expressed through an election. Period. You know what I mean? Even though our system is not perfect, we'll have something better going on than what we do right now if people do politics before politics does them.
I always find my politics get complicated, and I have layers, I guess you could say, to my politics. But the one thing that comes to mind, and I can't say that I'm 100% okay with this, but there are countries that have mandatory voting rules too, right?
Yeah. And you can go spoil your ballot or whatever. And
you're still allowed to go and spoil your ballot.
Yeah.
You're still allowed to go and just drop a ballot with nothing on it, or you can write "fuck you" or you're all the same, you stupid politician bitches, or whatever you fucking want to do with your ballot, right? But you have to vote.
Yeah, and in Australia, for example, last I heard, now don't have any like information from Australia for the last 10 years on this subject, but I was told by an Australian friend that the cost of not voting is like $70 fine. So if you don't go, it's $70. They don't kill you if you don't vote. It's
right.
It's a law. You have to vote. If you don't, you get fined $70. You can go spoil your ballot, whatever. Just do it. You know what I mean? And I think that in order to have the rights that you're afforded in a democratic society, you should have to carry some responsibilities to go along with those rights. I don't think that's unreasonable.
Isn't it ironic that people complain that the system, it's all the same, and yet they don't vote at all, and then when it comes down to it, they're like you're saying earlier, there are choices. One way I've heard it explained is, and this is I'll admit a negative approach to it.
Yeah.
But imagine you're a slave.
Yeah.
Okay? Let's just imagine that you're a slave.
Okay.
Okay. You get the choice between 15 lashings, 10 lashings, or 5 lashings. Which one do you want?
It's all the same. They're lashings.
It's all. What the fuck? If I'm gonna get 5, I might as well get 50.
Yeah.
What the
That's
fuck?
a good way to do it. No, I was thinking along the same lines, but I like your lashings analogy. Like, because the thing, if someone tells me, "Oh, those all politicians are all the same," and I was like, okay, so they're all the same in that they're shitty people or bad or something like that. Okay, cool.
Or all that they have to make hard decisions.
Let's give you that, okay?
Yeah.
Now, is one of them any worse than the other? Because it'd be pretty hard to be all equally evil, right? So is there any one of these politicians that you find to be less evil than the other one? Because if so, it's incumbent upon you as a voting member of this republic to go and vote for the least evil. I'll tell you straight up, there is no such thing as a single political party in this country that even comes close to capturing the ideas that I would like to express through government.
I can't say that I agree 100% with any political party, not just in Canada, just in general.
Yeah,
I mean that should be pretty straightforward.
I've spent most of my time on this show if there's going to be a single politician that I've advocated for, it would be Thomas Mulcair, right? We would agree on that, right? I may agree with about 50% of his viewpoint, and I think that's pretty good. I agree with that guy half the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and then you got to, of course, decide on what the issues are that you agree and disagree, and some of them are more important, some are less important, and you got to make just like when you're making friends. Do people think that everyone else is a fucking dumb shit and therefore they don't make any friends? No, man. You meet people and you decide for yourself whether you like people or not.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like, come on, let's treat our politicians the same way. They're not perfect. They're human beings like us. They are put in a position to make hard choices. Sometimes you're going to disagree with them, even if you like them. Sometimes if you don't like them, you might find that they'll do something that you agree with. I mean, let's be adults about this,
Yeah.
Like,
I'll give you an example of something I really respect about Thomas Mulcair. And the idea that I respect about Thomas Mulcair, one of his viewpoints that I respect, contains something that I deeply disrespect. But you know what I mean? I have to go in there and parse his ideas and pull out what I don't like and what I do like, and then measure them against each other to find out, do I still have something to support this guy for? I like what Thomas Mulcair has said about the Dutch disease. I think this is a very important topic for conversation in Canada. I mean, runaway development of the Canadian tar sands is bad for the Canadian economy and good for the Canadian economy, but it's certainly bad for the Canadian environment. Okay, so insofar as there's a great economy in Alberta that's served by developing these tar sands, cool, great, whatever. That results in taxes, that results in jobs. I'm into it. Okay, but the fact that it results in our petrocurrency being appreciated against our trading partners and annihilates our manufacturing sector in Ontario, the province in which I live, I have to say I agree with Thomas Mulcair on his analysis that the Dutch disease is a problem for Ontario, and that in itself is a problem for Canada. Okay,
I think it might be even a problem for the manufacturing base across the country.
Well, yeah, and Ontario, the engine of Ontario's economy is the manufacturing base, right?
This is true. The biggest manufacturing hubs are in Ontario and Quebec, probably.
Yeah, and so I agree with that. But no, I don't agree with Thomas Mulcair's solution in any way, shape, or form. He wants the tar sands to internalize their environmental costs through a cap and trade system,
yeah,
which
I hear you.
Which is, guess what? This is not in any way, shape, or form a green policy, even though he'll pass it off as one. Okay, because a cap and trade system is the way to masquerade as an environmentalist while you serve the interests of bankers. That's just what it boils down to. So do you see how I can take something, an idea from a politician that I generally respect, I can break that idea down into its working parts and see the parts I do like and the parts I don't like, and I kind of have to live with it, right? Because I support this guy.
Yeah.
And I kind of have to live with the parts that I don't like, because at least he's on the right trail. At least he's got a sniff of the right ideas.
Right.
Insofar as I'm concerned, I'm not saying I'm always right, but
a couple things I'd just quickly say about that is, I think Noam Chomsky said it perfectly when he said, if people were to pay even a tenth of attention that they pay to sports, I mean, people are willing. You go and talk to somebody who's into hockey, and they'll give you in-depth analysis about the coach, the team, the league itself. They're willing to do that. They love, you know what I mean? They'll buy right into it. They'll get into it, and they'll form their opinions. They'll take time. They'll think about it. But if they would just do that just a little bit with politics, then they would be able to see the same things that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And as far as the other thing this is totally different issue here, but the other thing I think that's happening is I think that the Green Party members are starting to recognize that in this current system that they're playing spoiler in certain ridings, and I think they're starting to look at the other two opposition parties and say, well, who's gonna be inclusive to us? And that means that both the Liberals and the NDP need to look at the Greens and find the best aspects of the Green Party's green policies. Forget the rest of their platform.
You mean kind of like Stéphane Dion did in 2008, right?
Yeah. Because if you can attract green voters to your campaign, drop all the cap and trade shit. You know what I mean? Forget about that. You've got to do something more honest. That's as much as I agree with you that I like Mulcair's stance, and I know that he's saying that something has to be different. He's not saying to destroy the tar sands. He's saying that it has to be done in an effective manner, but it is questionable whether the cap and trade system is going to make that a fair system.
I'd go beyond saying that it's questionable. I'd say it's fucking bullshit that it's going to have any effect on the actual pollution rate of the tar sands. Okay, I do see it as being a tax on tar sands development, which is, all right, but I don't think that tax should just go directly into the pockets of traders, speculative investors it's bankers and speculators who get rich off of cap and trade, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, at least with a good old-fashioned honest carbon tax, that money goes into government coffers, and they can use that for environmental cleanup, use it for healthcare. You know what I mean? That makes more sense to me. The end result still is a tax on carbon, right?
And that's one of the things that, as far as this is a totally different issue, but we didn't get into the cooperation issue. But if Liberals and New Democrats are going to have any influence in their party that's going to help in the sense of being able to sway different voters, and if the Green Party is willing to maybe think about voting for another party for this next election,